Fine. Good evening, everyone, uh, and everybody who has joined in through YouTube and other social media platforms as well. Hi, my name is Shantanu. I am the faculty and program lead for supply chain management program here at Center for Continuing Education, UPES. We are delighted to have you all join us today in this exciting event, that is webinar on the topic leveraging disruptive technologies in supply chain management and logistics in India. So, logistics as a sector or an industry is growing, and how the technology is helping and in its leveraging and giving uh, it an edge with the with the use of technological tools, with the IT automation, with the artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other technologies, how it is helping us to get an edge over competitors. So it is not only helping us to get competitive advantage, but also it is helping some way or the other in the sustainability aspects as well. So now, without wasting much of your time, I would like to invite and introduce actually our guest and expert for this today's event. So, so today's webinar will be led by our expert, that is Dr. Ashish, who is currently working as a senior director at DHL Service Logistics, and he has done PhD in the area of supply chain management as well, and has more than 25 years of experience in supply chain, warehousing, and distribution. He has led roles in operations excellence, aftermarket supply chain, and all these years he has worked in all across industries, whether it is technology, consumer, retail, medical equipment, FMCG, automotive. I don't not have the words to recall even the number of industries that he has handled with. So, without wasting any of your time now, I would like Dr. Ashish to share his insights and expertise with us today. So, over to you, Dr. Ashish.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Shantanu. So, good evening, everyone, and we'll probably spend the next 40 odd minutes to understand what's happening in the supply chain and the logistics domain in India. We'll look at different aspects of what's happening, how big is the industry, what's happening in the industry in terms of the government initiatives and the initiatives by the sector itself, how are companies investing and embracing new technologies that are coming in, and we'll also discuss and touch upon the idea of what kind of roles are available in the industry in India. We'll focus on the country as such, and what can you as people who are either working professionals or wanting to get into this industry, what kind of opportunities does supply chain and logistics give you, whether it is in terms of start of career or it is alternatively building your career in the same domain. So we'll move forward. You can put up your questions on the Q&A tab, and we'll probably discuss when we finish the presentation. Then I can take up the questions one by one so that we don't disturb the flow of the session. Okay, so just moving on. So this is a quick overview of what's happening in the industry. So as most of you would know that India is the second largest. Probably some of the economists are saying it is now the largest population in the world, with about 1.38 or 1.4 billion people. And the estimated logistics market in India, or the supply chain industry in India, is around 210 billion currently, right? So some estimates or some numbers will give you a figure of 230, 250, but it is somewhere between 200, 230 billion as per 2022 numbers. This industry is a sunrise industry, as I said, because it is growing at a very fast pace. It is one of the few industries which is registering a double-digit growth, especially after the fiasco in COVID. And some estimates have also put this growth at about 12-13%, in the coming years to come, between now and 2025, 2026. This sector also contributes to about 13% of our GDP, which means indirectly means that this sector is not that efficient, which means that there are gaps and it's not very efficient, uh, which is good news. Good news because it is not very efficient, then the demand of people in this sector is very high, and it creates a lot of job opportunities. You would have heard and probably heard no less than the Honorable Prime Minister stating that we want to bring this contribution towards GDP to about a single digit number in the next 5 years, which is very aspirational. And I think there is a lot of work which the government is doing along with the private sector to bring this percentage down, which means that it wants to create an ecosystem where the efficiency of logistics is very, very high, and that's how the overall cost would come down. So this also provides a lot of opportunities for growth and employment in this sector for the people in India. The second thing which I want to introduce is that when GST was implemented, so a lot of people thought that GST is a tax collection change that the government of India is trying to bring in of centralized tax system and so on and so forth. However, it had very positive influence on the supply chain as an industry or as a sector. Prior to GST, I'm not sure how many people would be aware. Most of you might have been, students in college or very early in the sector. We had something called as the local sales tax and the central sales tax. And a lot of the logistics decision were made by financial people in business organizations because where to have a warehouse and etc was dependent upon this evasion of central sales tax and implementing more of local sales tax and so on and so forth, right? So post the GST, what has happened is there is a bit of consolidation which has happened. Two, the decision on supply chain is more with the supply chain folks rather than the financial folks, right? So that's a positive development for the sector and the industry. The third thing which is happening, and you would have heard of it, is the launch of a formal government organization, which is the logistics division within the Department of Commerce. And there has been a national logistics policy. The draft is already out. You guys can search on Google and probably find the national logistics policy draft. And on the so national logistics policy and Gati Shakti program, which was very recently launched and introduced by the government. So this Gati Shakti, in combination with the national logistics policy, is actually embarking on a journey of digitization and trying to bring as many players and as many different stakeholders under a single IT platform so that there is visibility, there is transparency. And it is also, from a government perspective, trying to build a lot of infrastructure. Now, this infrastructure is in terms of roads. People who are working professionals and are aware that there were, in the erstwhile pre-GST, there were a lot of forms. Every state had a different form. You had to stop at, different checkpoints and, and that was losing a lot of time and effort by everybody and was adding on to the cost. But post GST, when the e-way bill came into the picture, now there is a seamless entry and travel of trucks and transportation across the borders of different states, and it is actually helping the overall trucking industry. The other thing is with the infrastructure development, it has reduced transit times, transit times in terms of travel from one location to the other, which of course will lead to more and more efficiency. So this is, I thought I'll just give you a summary of what's happening from a sector perspective and what's happening from a government perspective. Okay, the other few data points that I want to give in terms of why this industry is again sunrise and why does it provide so much of opportunities for people who want to get into this industry is that as of now, India employs about 22 million people in this industry in India. Okay, and there's an attrition of about 8 to 10%. Some companies do report, an attrition rate of anything between 15 to 20%. But on an average, if you look at a weighted average, this is about 10%. So at 10% attrition, you can very well assume that if the employment is 22 million, then about 2 million jobs are getting either vacant or getting replaced or are providing opportunities to different set of people from a growth perspective. The other good thing, as I told you, is that being 13% of the GDP as a percentage of GDP, it technically is inefficient, and it is inefficient. Of course, one of the reasons is about lack of focus of the government previously, and the other factor which contributes is that a lot of the industry, about estimates say that about 80% of the industry is still unorganized and is run by players who are not very professional, and so there is ample opportunity to organize this as well. The third factor is why this is a sunrise sector is I already told you about the government focus. I already told you about the investments that the industry and is bringing in, the corporate players are bringing in, especially in the warehousing field. So there's a lot of FDI which has already come in into India, and these players, these private equity players, are building a lot of warehousing ecosystem in India, which is really world class, right? So they are trying not the traditional, very small warehouses, etc., but a very something that is of in par with what the global logistics ecosystem is doing, so that India moves up. A good development has been that India right now is ranked about 38 out of 139 countries in the Logistic Performance Index. This is about 8 or 9 positions up versus the last survey, which is a very good indicator, which means that India in the overall, this could be ease of business, this could be infrastructure development, this could be improvement in efficiency, reduction in time, reduction in losses, and so on and so forth, all these factors, right? The other thing, as I said in my opening statement, is there have been certain disruptions which actually have fast-tracked the industry in India, especially post-COVID. So the biggest disruption, as everybody knows, was COVID, for sure. It impacted all the countries. It impacted people. It impacted organizations. It impacted, all the modes of freight, whether it is land, sea, air, and so on and so forth. So, and that probably led to a thinking of how can, organizations and countries all across the world set up an alternate base for China. So people in the industry would know that there is already talks of production link incentive, which the government is providing. There is talks of China Plus One. And a lot of companies have already, you would have heard Apple, you would have heard Microsoft, you would have heard Tata, Vedanta, and a lot of these semicon, players, global leaders like ASML and Lam Research wanting to invest production facilities in India. And in fact, some of them have already taken, grant from the government under the production link incentive. And they have already set up bases with the likes of Wistron and Foxconn setting up factories for Apple in India. The second thing which has disrupted is the trade laws and the trade barriers. So this has come because, of course, because of the China thing, there are a lot of sanctions, there are a lot of restrictions. The next thing which has, impacted is the trade wars and the normal war. So we all already hear about, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and a few other countries getting involved. A lot of sanctions by the European and the American, the American nations on Russia, and people looking at alternative things. And then, of course, all these things giving India as an advantage, because India now, one, it has a lot of infrastructure which is unutilized and not used until now. Two, it is providing an ecosystem. Three, there is consistency in the government, and the governments and the organizations all across the world are now having faith in India. So unlike earlier times where the government was not very stable, and so companies have already started to invest in India, and all these disruptions are unlikely to go away in the short term. So when I say short term, it technically means that we will expect these kind of disruptions to happen over the next 2-3 years, giving India as or making India as an at a pivotal role in the global supply chain and the logistics market. Okay, so from a potential perspective, people might think, logistics, traditionally supply chain logistics, people just think that it is just about warehousing and transport. But, the industry itself provides different set of job opportunities in different functions. So if you look at, if I move from left to right, there are opportunities with business development, there are opportunities in business analytics, digital marketing, scale, sales, key account management. If I move to support functions like, finance, HR, IT, legal, real estate, procurement, cyber security, and others, it also gives you opportunities to become solution designers, become project managers, become ops excellence experts. It gives you, the traditional, operations, which includes warehousing, FTWZ, which is the free trade warehousing zones, custom bonded warehousing. Within transportation, it gives you a lot of opportunities within the full truck market, the part truckload market, air, and, domestic express. If some people want to go on the customer side, so you can go into things like demand planning, inventory planning, customer service, all those, kind of niche jobs. Of course, it provides a lot of opportunities. And then there's the international bit, so which basically includes international transportation. It might look very small, but, this industry is very, very large and vast. It provides different services like ocean freight, air. Within air, there are multiple things like Air Express, Air Console, project cargo, and value-added services, like customs brokerage, customs clearance, and within those jobs and roles, there are, operations, BD, and so on and so forth. So, from a sector perspective or industry perspective, there are different touch points on the opportunities that or the niche that you want to create for yourself in an organization, whether it is either on the manufacturing side or the product side or the services side of it. Okay. So as I move forward, probably on the left hand side, you see, and people would be very familiar with the VUCA world, which was traditionally called as volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So VUCA world was or VUCA was a terminology which was coined, somewhere in the 1980s. And as, time went by and technology played an important role in every part of, business and lives of people, slowly the industry started to realize that these concepts are getting worn out, or they are getting no more traction in the industry. And one of the reasons is that a lot of these things became part of life or part of business for everyone. So the world is volatile. So this is not something which is new to us now. It is volatile, we all know, right? Every day we hear things like, a war or a flood situation or any disruption which might occur in the industry. So it's fairly volatile. So mentally we know that yes, the world is volatile. It is uncertain, of course, because it is volatile. It has to have uncertainty. It is complex because we are dealing with things like trade wars or sanctions or complex geographies and language barriers and so on and so forth. And it is ambiguous as well. So these were things where organizations and the industry started to realize that this is part of our business and it is nothing new. So they had to come up with something very different. So they, on the right hand side, you see this is a new concept called the Bani world. earlier, and this was coined, a few years ago. So what the industry is now saying is that we are, the situation or the macroeconomic factors or the external environment is such that it is making organizations brittle, which means, uh, on the surface or on the top of it, it looks all well. But as the pressure or the uncertainty which we know of starts to pile on, and the risk factors start to happen, then the organizations, or for that matter, because we are talking about supply chain, the supply chains tend to crack. So we are brittle, and we don't know, which part of the entire supply chain is brittle. It is getting anxious because, you know, we prepare for something that doesn't happen. Then something happens for which we don't prepare. So, there is anxiety, kind of looming all across supply chains. It is non-linear because you would have heard concepts of JIT, etc. Post-COVID, those were changed for just in case, and so it's non-linear. So for every time you have to do something, it has to be, very different. And it is different to comprehend as to what will happen. So this is the new, terminology which moves around the supply, not only supply chain, but this is across business organizations, and you can interpret it or probably tailor it to your your industry in specific as to which part of your supply chain is either brittle or anxious or non-linear, and you cannot comprehend. Okay, so two more data points. So if you look at digitization, automation, and there are a lot of things like talked about, which is blockchain and artificial intelligence and robotics and so on and so forth, and we'll discuss each one of them in the subsequent slides. By 2026, it is expected that 75% of large enterprises will adopt some part of intralogistics smart robots in their warehousing operations. And one word of caution, I think a lot of organizations or people, I would say not organizations, but people think that automation or bringing in all these technologies in will technically replace people. It's not about replacement of people. I can tell you for sure that there is so much of shortage of supply chain talent in India that the industry is technically struggling. I can tell you, I work for a 3PL company, so I'm working with 40 different uh, customers in different industries. So they come from tech industry, consumer industry, E&M, life sciences, and consumer, and very different industries, and every company is struggling with a supply chain talent, right? So they want people, but they don't get people. So robotics will only supplement the gap which exists in terms of people in the supply chain industry. Robotics is not going to replace in any form or way uh, the people who actually are deployed in this industry. So people think that, oh, there is so much of technology coming in, and our jobs will be at stake. And so I think at least in the supply chain industry, people don't have to bother, at least for the next 25 to 30 years, that jobs will be at stake. Right on the right hand side, you see another data point where you see advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. This is something which is the in thing, I would say, especially on analytics and artificial intelligence, of course. Helping supply chains to I would say come over this Bani world. So they are trying to use data, information, learning, and put them into machine, which is called machine learning, and then try and see what we can get the best optimal solution, which is a resilient supply chain, right? So this is the overall industry sentiment as of now. Okay, so we move to trends, and so these are top trends. I'm not going to go in detail. I'll not read out. This is for your own consumption. But few of them, I'm going to probably, not few, technically everything, in over the next 8 to 10 slides. On the right hand side, you see a data point. So Gartner is, one of the global agencies which does a supply chain survey every year. They find out top 100 supply chain companies in the world. The evaluation process is pretty stringent, and they find out what are these companies doing. So it includes things like current trends, how are they efficient in their supply chain, and so on and so forth. So these, I thought I'll give you a perspective of what top 25 supply chains look like. Cisco, apparently, this is the third year that they have come on number 2, but for the last 2 years they were at number 1, right? And you see, this is a good mix. Schneider is a E&M company, Cisco is a tech company, Colgate Palmolive is a consumer company, Johnson and Johnson is a life sciences company, Walmart is one of the largest retailers, or discount store. And so this is a good mix of different industry sectors, and there are a few names below, from a chemical industries. And there are certain common themes which I will talk about in all these companies as to why these companies are, in the top 25. And a lot of these companies are very consistently in the top 25, which means that they continue to do, they have beaten they are thinking ahead of the curve. They are thought leaders in the industry. And that's why they've been able to beat not all, I would say. They were, of course, disrupted during 2020 and trade wars and, the futuristic events, but they have been able to make their supply chains fairly resilient in terms of beating what's happening in the overall, world and the disruptions that are happening. So visibility, agility, and resilience. So these are, top 3 common themes among all these companies. They have ensured that they use technology so that they have enough visibility in their supply chain. Because of the visibility, they can be agile, which means that in case of any disruptions or things that they have to change because of competition or any other aspect, they are able to respond very, very quickly. Not that there's no company in this world who is absolutely shielded or does not get impacted. They do, but the winners are companies who actually are agile and resilient. They are able to absorb the shocks. They are able to immediately transform into alternative solutions. Okay, so a few other common themes among these companies and also happening in India are on the ESG, which is the environment, social, and governance perspective. When we talk about, these 3 things, which is environment, social, and governance. So governance, of course, is basically the corporate governance and how ethical and moral a company is. Social is about what's their contribution to the society, diversity, inclusiveness, equality, and of course, environment, primarily focusing on how much CO2 emissions are being reduced. Every company now has, targets because this is also a mandate by the European Union and a lot of social enterprises all across the globe. Then transportation and how are they optimizing their transportation via artificial intelligence. So this optimization is by weight, by volume, by price as well. Use of RFID for traceability. So how much inventory can they trace? Loss of inventory is loss of money. Use of robotics, use of analytics, and real-time data for decision making. So some people say we have control towers. Some people say, it's managed through a managed services portfolio. And, so different people will have different terminology, but the base thing is that how fast or how much can you get in terms of real data. Okay, so the first theme, and all the 10, 11 themes that I'm going to talk about, I will give you examples. They are already listed on the slides. You can go through them. And if anybody has any questions, you can park them on the Q&A or the chatbot, and I'll try and answer. So big data and analytics is something which is on everybody's mind right now. And you will be surprised to know that we talk about analytics. A lot of people say we do analytics day in, day out. But in reality, this is a misnomer, right? So people might have data, but technically, they don't use that information or data to make business decisions. And that is why analytics and big data is now very, very key. And, everybody wants to get into it. So it's like, everybody wants to do big data, and it's kind of buzzword in the industry. So just to give you an example, UPS, which is one of the largest, global logistics companies, have used data and analytics to optimize their routes. So they operate, international air, they do domestic transport, etc., etc. So you can imagine the kind of savings this has brought in. 300 to 400 million dollars a year, which is a staggering amount, right? And this is year on year. So all this savings, and if you look at the left, analytics is just not analytics. It is, kind of predictive modeling. It is technology, it is automation, it is data mining, and it is also insights. So you can derive certain insights based on what data and information you do. You can do a lot of, people planning. If you are into a large manufacturing or in a large warehouse, you can do planning of vehicles. You can do, so there's a lot that you can do with analytics. And this was just one example. I thought, will give you a realistic picture. And a lot of companies in India are doing it. They have started to do it. They have, kind of started to invest. So this is one thing which will, probably be, and, as you move forward on the analytics, so this is an entry level, I would say, tech that companies are using. And then, it gets into data mining and machine learning and, so on and so forth. But the base is data. Now, one of the key factors on big data and analytics is that how accurate is the data, right? One thing is that you can have data, but how accurate is it is even more important. Otherwise, you will, probably based on incorrect data, make incorrect decisions, right? So that's very important. Okay. So I move
sir, before we move on to the next question, I have a question or a query, how companies like DHL and the pioneers in logistics and supply chain, how they are using that data analytics in terms of the not only getting the data and using it in making the decision, and how that analytics based decision is helping the business improving their efficiency in some terms of supply chain.
Sure. So, yeah, so not only us, in fact, I can give you some industry practices which are currently happening. So a very entry level example would be, so for example, you are, running a very large 4 lakh square feet warehouse for a consumer company where you have deployed 500 people, right? So, so you are doing transactions day in, day out, inbound, outbound, picking, all these activities are happening. Now, if you have a data pile of, let's say, 24 months, you are able to predict that which days in a month you will have highs, which days in the month you will have lows, and which days in the month will be, linear or very close to average. So basis this, you can, futuristically plan your people. So you won't require 500 people every day, right? There might be times where you require just about 400 people. There will be times where you require on an average 450 people, and there will be times where you will require 550 people, right? So futuristically plan your people. So this helps in two ways. One, that you do away with the problem of people shortage. Two, you definitely get a cost advantage because of the number of days ups and downs and the number of people that you can flex. This is very, entry level analytics I would say that you can do. The other thing is on route optimization. So as UPS did, you can do a optimization. So if you are sending vehicles every day on, let's say, 5 routes, and then at the end of let's say if you have a 12 months data, you can say, okay, this route, every time I am using a vehicle, it is only 50% utilized because of capacity and because of weight. So can I reduce the vehicle size, or can I club this vehicle with some other route which is, like 30-40% unutilized? So in that ways, you are optimizing your cost, reducing, your administrative task, and of course, reducing your carbon footprint. So these are, very real life examples, very entry level, but these are very realistic in nature.
Wow, I mean, yeah, load optimization and the route optimization with the help of analytics and the human resource working at the warehouse or a factory can also be utilized with the help of analytics. So that is
Yeah,
fantastic. In fact,
absolutely.
yeah, in fact, I was reading that article by PNG, and they are using and they are creating a separate supply chain analytics team. So they are training their workforce specifically dedicatedly into big data and analytics related to supply chain. So that is very interesting to see. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So the next in line is automation. So uh, so these have various notions. So you can automate, tech, software systems, and innovate. Very simple example. Very recently, there's a startup in US by the name Radar. They actually are using an RFID technology with computer vision to track and trace inventory, and they are already test piloting this with. So I'm sure you are aware of the American Eagle brand. They manufacture jeans and everything. So they have about 500 stores in US, and they are trying to test pilot this technology, integrated technology, very entry level from a US perspective. RFID might still be, uh, I would say, in that sense, a bit expensive for India. But if you look at, the um, uh, uh, technology in US, then RFID would relatively very cheap. So that aided with computer vision for tracking and tracing their inventory is getting test piloted. In fact, the pilot has already started all across 500 stores in, right? So automation is being used for as a competitive advantage, especially with companies who have a fair appetite of automating things in terms of visibility and efficiency and profit. Of course, and everything in business is linked to money, so it has to be profitable. It has to be making sense of return on investment that you are doing with the tech piece of business. Okay, as I move on, so next in line, with automation is robotics. I think this is something which is being talked about in big sense, and a lot of this is already implemented in India. So you can, actually, it's not that it's not available in India. One of the largest, startups, and a lot of people would be aware, is Adverb. It's a Indian startup which is going global now. In fact, Reliance holds a majority stake in that company now. So they are only doing, robotics for the supply chain. Okay, they are doing robotics for multiple industries, but their focus industry is supply chain. So they are building arm sorters, follow me bots, automated guided vehicles, and this is not only in improving accuracy, it is improving employee morale because these vehicles at times are being used by people, and it is reducing employee fatigue as well. The accuracies have gone up. There is consistency. Of course, there is compliance because these are not humans, so you don't have to get into things like are you paying minimum wages to these people, etc. Robots don't go on strikes. Robots don't get impacted with COVID. So there are a lot of added benefits which robotics is happening. If in fact you can go to a lot of warehouses, especially with these marketplaces like Flipkart and Amazon, and you can see lot of sortation systems, arm sorters already, being deployed in India. So this is something which is very real, and not a technology which is being used by the European or the US market and not in India. So, this is something which, people can experience, go see, and, work at different use cases.
Yes, sir. In fact, I was reading that article that now with the emergence of Industry 5.0, the sustainability and societal aspect added into the Industry 4.0, and specifically when the people getting scared about the robotics and how and might take jobs, so they have come up with the idea and concept of cobots, the collaborative robots that will assist humans in easing of their jobs and reducing
Exactly.
their time and effort.
And robots are only being used to, probably, as I said, support organizations to deliver on their supply chain goals, because there is
Absolutely.
already shortage of supply chain talent. So you go find people, you don't get them. There is so much of disparity between the demand and supply. So that's why robotics is catching eye in India. So people or organizations are thinking, if I need 100 people, I'm only getting 70. How can I backfill those 30 people? So it is either you get people, or probably uh, get somebody who's as close as a person, which is in this case robotics. So uh, you know and that's how the industry is. Okay, the next in line, cyber security. I think I need not tell people, would be aware of the kind of different, either cyber attacks or phishing emails, or SMSs or links that you get. And so there have been over 1 million cyber attacks in India in 2020, which was the year of COVID, and they are only increasing. Okay, so India right now ranks third uh, in terms of attacks that happen because of either phishing emails, or these links or emails that you get, these bank frauds, electricity frauds. And uh, so supply chain is not an industry which is not prone to cyber attacks, right? Because you are using warehouse management softwares, transport management softwares, you are using robotics, and so on and so. You actually are taking a lot of place on cloud or data centers, or and there is a lot of data, right? So because if you, let's say for an example, you talk about any global company, you talk about Walmart or Procter and Gamble or Nestle for that matter. Now imagine the kind of data that would be sitting on their servers, in terms of their customer profile, demographics, reach, penetration, location, manufacturing, sales, the number of units sold, and strategy, and so on and so forth. And if somebody kind of breaks into their servers and takes away all the data and puts it on the dark web for sale, there will be competition who will be ready to buy that data. Look at the case of credit cards. A lot of customer information. So you can put up that information on sale, and data is the new gold or new diamond, in today's world. So there is so much of data and information which is available, and you need to secure that. In fact, there are laws in the US, and even India is thinking about of having people private policy, so that how much data can companies reveal about their customers, and so on and so forth. So I think this will come in India, but cyber security is, you could do all of automation, all of whatever you want to do, but if your networks and securities are not enabled, then probably you are in for a toss. And uh, just because of that, there is a lot of demand of people who are cyber security experts, not only within the supply chain industry, but across the industry, sectors and the private ecosystem as well. So huge demand of cybersecurity experts, not only in India but globally as well. Okay, so next in line is artificial intelligence. Most talked about, one of the most talked about technologies right now in this space. This coupled with machine learning is actually, helping supply chain companies and a lot of startups. So I've given you a global example of UPS, which is using artificial intelligence for predictive analysis. But I've also given you examples of companies or startups in India who have used predictive analytics or artificial intelligence or a combination of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data analytics to set up companies. So Locus is a company which does route optimization and vehicle optimization. So it's in the transportation space. Picker, you already, a lot of you would have heard of. Shipsy, again, a last mile delivery company, which probably is using all these technologies. The other technology is telematics. So telematics is, a combination of, this is mainly being used for transportation, especially in vehicles, to monitor the driver behavior to avoid accidents in future, right? And a lot of telematics is both inside the cabin and outside. So it is trying to capture the driver behavior and outside conditions, a combination of both to avoid accidents in future, right? So I think these are real life examples of as to how artificial intelligence is probably helping the industry.
Yeah, in fact, there is a question from student also that is there any example of artificial intelligence really helping logistics and supply chain become more efficient? So I think you have answered it well. Apart from it, companies like Amazon and even UPS, they are using all these technologies not only in route optimization but also in terms of customer satisfaction. So all these companies, even Merck's line, their companies, they are using chatbots that are based on chat GPT based kind of platform, and which is helping them in giving more and better customer responses, in fact. And now it has been moved from more of curative AI to more of generative AI, where you have more of information that is already there, and the system itself is generating the responses and data insights from
Right.
it. So yeah, you can go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Risk management. So, I'll not discuss this in detail because risk management is a very specialized, domains, and it talks about how can you risk proof your, overall different things which exist in the supply chain. So friend shoring is a concept which came up to de-risk supply chain. So this is nothing but, you become friends and so not as individuals but as countries or organizations, and you can use common facilities, you can use alternative manufacturing locations, and so on and so forth. So this is primarily a risk mitigation strategy. Okay, so digitization. So I think a lot of people and would have heard of this word of what are we trying to digitize and why are we trying to digitize. So it's basically shrinking the world, interconnectedness, and the value of information. In fact, you will be surprised to know that a lot of companies who have different business units, with the likes of even Tata or Reliance, who have different business units, would buy the same product from different suppliers at a different price, right? Because everything was not connected. But as long as now all these things are coming into foray, probably there is one collective information base, and there is a lot of global data harmonization happening, and a lot of people are predicting that this digitization or digitized world where you use different technologies will help procurement. So kind of procure from 2 or 3 different sources, but you procure in of course either bulk or cost effective, and then have a staggered approach of receiving material, from your global suppliers.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, sir, the companies, even Government of India uses GEM portal for its contract and tendering, etc., and for procurement purposes. And all these digitization and technology advancement have actually made supply chain more visible, or visibility of the actually supply chain have increased because of all these technology interventions. So in fact, what all programs that we have in UPES, and specifically the MBA Logistics and Supply Chain program, which is completely online, it also teaches in all aspects, in fact in all the courses or all the subjects that are being taught, how technology, in fact, is specifically in terms of digital transformation and digitalization, how they are actually helping this in improving the business. So anybody who joins business as a manager after completing the program not only becomes a kind of transactional manager just to see the daily operations, but has a mindset to actually become a kind of transformational manager or a transformational leader who actually transforms the scenario or the industry operations that are happening. So with this mindset, actually, a student here also take the insights and go in the industry and work. So this is our another focus that we have here at CCU.
In fact, one
Yes,
of
sir.
the pillars of the Gati Shakti program, which is launched by the government, is digitization.
Yeah.
They want to bring everybody, all the stakeholders on a single IT platform, so that there is enough visibility within the different stakeholders, across the industry and the government.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so I talked about the ESG part of it. So I'll just focus on the E part of it. So if you look at the E part of it, which is the environment, so the fastest growth has been on the electric vehicle sector. People would have seen, it's not only the private sector, providing electric vehicles, but for a consumer perspective, all car manufacturers now have an electric vehicle alternative. If you look at the government, a lot of state buses are EVs, with Tata, Ashok Leyland, JBM, a lot of these guys. In fact, one of the studies says that the investment in the electrical vehicle segment, which is only for commercial need, which is two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers, versus last year has gone up by 153%. So you can imagine, the focus of people in providing the environment sustainable solutions for the supply chain industry. The next is, of course, is solar panels. So this is on warehouses. So the electricity is being generated by solar panels. In some states, the government accepts the excess electricity that you produce into the grid, which of course is then being supplied to end consumers. And then sustainable packaging, which is avoiding plastic, using recycled material, and so on and so forth. So this is a big agenda. I think there's a lot of, in fact, there are a lot of companies who have somebody who wants to build a career in the ESG. Companies have portfolios like ESG manager, or a global ESG head, in fact, which was, till about 3 years, 4 years ago, not even thought of, that companies, will have somebody who's like a ESG manager or ESG head in the company. Okay, blockchain. So I have given real life examples. On the right hand side, you see that this is a US Pharma Ledger Association, where they have created, based on blockchain technology, the European regulators or the American regulators can access this Pharma Ledger and technically scrutinize technical, legal, academic, research, patient representative organizations, across the globe, right? So this gives them visibility of data. This gives them authenticity of data. Some other use cases you can see in the below this thing is that Walmart in collaboration with IBM is using blockchain technology to actually look at the condition of pork which is being supplied to them. This can be used for counterfeit drug control or counterfeit of any other thing, right? Because if a drug manufacturer is manufacturing, he will have all the details in his ERP, which is stored somewhere. And then, in case you catch a drug which is actually, and the company can be sued or against that, they can actually prove that this kind of drug is not manufactured by them. So, this is something which is probably transformational, I would say, futuristically. Slowly the use cases are coming out, but we'll have to wait and watch as to how much more can blockchain do in the supply chain sector.
Absolutely. In fact, with the blockchain smart contract, I think blockchain technology will take up pace in the blockchain enabled smart contract will come in picture in terms of procurement or leasing of warehouses and transportation.
Yeah, it gives you mainly authenticity. So, for a very simple example, is truck, right? In
Yeah.
India, if the truck is sold, 5 times, you might not even know the fifth. The buyer might not know when was it serviced, was it stolen, is it, any parts have been changed, etc., etc. But if you have a full truck data inside with all service records and everything, probably he can just access on a click of a button and see the authenticity of a truck. Whether it is somebody has not sold a stolen truck or something like that. So very simple use case which is
Absolutely.
available.
We have sir paucity of time as well, so I was, because student asked one of the important question, and one of my follow-up question was that according to you, what are the job opportunities for people who are, or who are actually interested in joining MBA supply chain logistics management program, or want to make a career in logistics supply chain management program? What can be the probable job opportunities for youth in India?
Sure. So I'll just take 5 minutes. I'll very quickly run through this and then I'll come back to the employment opportunities. So the other thing which is very upcoming is drone. So you would have seen, drone deliveries in India being transformed, especially on the life sciences and life-saving drugs. And Dr. Shantanu talked about Chat GPT combination. So GPT is nothing but generative pre-trained transformer. It is a kind of machine learning tech in combination with artificial intelligence. Okay, so just to take up that question, I'll go back to the slide where I actually showed the right. So from a job perspective, so these are all different roles that you can pursue, right? And you can pursue either, as I said, in a manufacturing organization or a product company, or nowadays there is a boom of 3PL or third party logistics provider, a lot of multinationals into this. So every aspect that you see here has huge potential in terms of job. So you can, if you are very keen on sales and marketing, you can go into business development, or if you want to still be as part of marketing but not do the field sales, you can get into digital marketing. If you want a customer facing role, you can get into customer service or account management. If you are a functional guy, which means that you specialize in finance or HR or IT or legal, or and you want to go into supply chain companies, so you can, they have huge potential. If you are a techie, you can go into things like analytics, machine learning, deployment of robotics, demand planning. And if you are a hardcore operator, you can pick up jobs at warehouses and transportation and international transportation. So this is the spread that you see in different areas. So based on your interest, choice, functional area, you can probably pick up any job in any of these fields.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the follow-up question, according to one of the student that asked is that it is said that logistics is more of kind of an industry or sector that is more of male-dominated. Is it true? And what are the opportunities for female candidates, like somebody who does MBA in supply chain management, and she is a female and she wants to join the industry?
Sure.
So, is it only the warehouse and transportation, or?
Okay. So if you would have asked me this question, 6, 7 years ago, I would have said yes. But in today's scenario, no. So I think if you look at, any decent brand or organization or company, everybody has this agenda. As I said, ESG, so S is the social part of it, which talks about things like diversity, equality, inclusion. In fact, a lot of multinationals now focus on hiring female candidates in the supply chain world. Yes, the percentage of people who come into this industry, females who come into this industry is relatively less for various reasons. Because people perceive that this is a dry industry, it's not very catchy, it's not very flamboyant. But the case is changing very, very fast. Now, females get into things like solution design, project management, digital marketing, key account management, finance, HR, IT, and there are so many different roles which are not based in a warehouse or in a factory location. They are absolutely jobs which are out in the open. So the female talent is now has started to come in. So there's a lot of diversity that you can see. You can go to a lot of multinational warehouses in India, I'm saying, and you will find females working at the shop floor. So I think there is now openness, and uh, people are willing to come. So it was both ways. Earlier, females were not ready to come, and the industry was also not open to take them. But now, females also are showing interest to come into this industry, and companies are also fairly open to, hire them and, you know.
Okay, I'll take one more question. That would be, I think, last question for the day, and that is by one of the student who says that he has done a degree in travel and tourism, and he has done a diploma in data analytics as well. So, what is the career opportunities for him if, let's say, he joins logistics industry or logistics? He does a logistics and supply chain management program.
So I think for him it is the right combination, because travel and tourism needs planning of vehicles, planning of routes, planning of people. And then he's got data analytics with him, which means that he can analyze how many people travel on a route, and how can he optimize vehicles that transport those people from origin to destination and back and forth. So logistics, in addition, will, the hospitality industry as such, the hotels, etc. They have a lot of inventory with them as well, right? You can talk about bed sheets, the disposable toothbrushes and toothpaste and soaps and so on and so forth. So there's a huge opportunity, I would say.
Yeah, in fact, Oyorim was also one of the prominent employers for the supply chain professionals as well. Like how their hotels will be getting all these toiletries and supplies of all these bed sheets, linens, etc. Was also a case. So, in fact, thank you, sir, for the answer. Again, because we have paucity of time, I will just try to wrap up today's session, and then we can call it a day. So as we started the webinar with the idea or notion of understanding what supply chain management is, how the industry, particularly in India, is working, what are the career prospects and opportunity related to logistics and supply chain management in India, here we have. Plus, we also discussed about what are the technology interventions that are there. And not only we are talking about something which is very futuristic, all these technology interventions are happening here in India. So if you want to have an edge, and if you want to get aware of what is happening, how it is implemented, it is the right time to join the industry or start pursuing a career in it. So in fact, I would like to again give a lot of thanks to Dr. Ashish for sparing his time from his busy schedule for our webinar, and to others as well, or the students, or who are the aspirants for this logistics and supply chain program, who have enrolled or who have registered for this webinar. I would also like to thank our operations team, who was meticulously planning this entire webinar and making it a kind of success in its way. The program, in fact, that we have in terms of logistics and supply chain management, it's an online program, 2-year program. So whosoever joins this program has the liberty or freedom that he don't have to quit his job and again do a full-time classroom study. He has to just attend classes on weekends and write some assignment and submit it online and give exams online, and can get the degree, MBA degree as well. There are multiple options of making career in. So there are various domain specific courses, functional courses, and domain tailored courses in this 2-year program. So you will be studying all the functional course subjects like marketing, HR, project management, and other things as well, plus some domain tailored courses like accounting in logistics and supply chain management, or like logistics strategy and planning, or specifically in terms of quality, so how lean supply chain functions, or how you can actually simulate and model a supply chain. So all these subjects are being taught in various semesters, so they give you a hang of how the industry functions. Here in this program, I would like to give highlight about, because this being more of an industry ready program, which means that we don't only have classes from the faculty members, but also from industry expert that like Dr. Ashish is with us today, sharing his insights and his experiences with us. Similarly, we have industry experts webinar and sessions as well. So that was something related to the programs. Admissions are going on. Whosoever is interested in, please get connected with our enrollment team and log on to CCUPS website for more information. This is Shantanu Trivedi from CCUPS. Thanking you all.